Hello, everybody. I'm back, as promised, with my round four report from the 2023 BC Open. As a recap, in round one, I lost what should have been an easily drawn endgame against a 1900, and then round two, I drew a 1800. Excuse me. And then round three, I drew another 1800. So my score was 1 out of 3, which may not sound good, but I was playing in the premier section. So 1 out of 3 is actually, I was quite happy with it. I was quite happy with that score. And one of the main goals, if not the main goal for this tournament for me, was to get my first FIDE rating. And I needed a result out of 5 games played against FIDE rated opponents. I already had 2 results, so that was done. And so far I had 3 rated opponents. I was lucky to get that because not everybody has a FIDE rating in North America. So there were 3 games left. This is a 6-round tournament, and I needed at least 2 more opponents that were FIDE rated. So I was lucky to get paired against yet another FIDE rated opponent in round 4. As you can see, I was paired up against Jose. I don't know how to say his last name. I think maybe Kagaoan. I always say Kagaoan, but I don't know if that's right. Anyways, I don't know much about him. I may have played him in one of the online tournaments during the pandemic. I'm not sure. When I played him, because I didn't have time to prepare or anything, like I just knew what the pairing was, like as soon as I got to the playing hall. I actually thought he was about 1700, but I didn't find out until after the game he was 1941. Had I known, I might have played a little bit more cautiously, possibly. And you can see here he's rated 1833, which is probably slightly underrated considering his CFC rating is higher. He's probably around maybe 50 years old or so, maybe a little bit older. It's hard to say. And before I get to the game, as you know, I like to just show some miscellaneous stuff from the tournaments. So, I took this photo at some point. I think I took this photo on my way back to the hotel after my 3rd round to go eat some lunch. I think I had like a leftover sub from Subway there. And there was a guy across the street when I was waiting to cross the street who looked a lot like Mr. Bean, and he kind of doing his facial expressions. And I just took a quick random shot, and I just thought I'd share that here. So there's who looks like Mr. Bean. He might have been a tournament player, so if this is you or if you know this person, I don't mean any disrespect. I just thought it was kind of interesting because it really caught my eye. Okay. Oh, yeah. And then this is out of sync, but after this round, I went and had dinner. I usually go to the food court when it's open, just because there's like at the mall near this tournament, there's like, if you go upstairs in the mall, there's like something like 20, 25 different food places, and most of them are Asian and interesting. So it's a lot better than what we have in my city where I live. And I noticed that there was a lot of people always going to, like, this was the most popular place, this Bubble Waffle Cafe. I've been to this food court many times from past tournaments, but I've never gone here, partly because the menu is fairly exotic and there's always a huge lineup. But because it's so busy, I really wanted to try it out because it must be good, right? And I was still hungry after this game. I got a fair bit of food. It turned out to be very hit and miss. So the chicken, maybe some of you can explain this to me more, but I think this was a Taiwanese place. And I got like a Hainan chicken, and anyways, I guess this is how they do it. And I couldn't really understand the guy that was talking. But this was cold, and a lot of the skin, it wasn't raw, but it tasted raw. But I believe it wasn't raw, but it's like boiled chicken, and then they serve it cold. And so nothing is crispy or fried or anything like that. It's just like yeah. So that was not so great. If it was hot, it would have been good, but it was cold, and not cooked cold. I mean, it was cooked, but it's like barely cooked. It's hard to explain. On the other hand, they gave a lot of chicken. Like, I was surprised how much chicken they gave. Like, it felt like I ate half the chicken. It doesn't look like much here, but believe me, this was like deep, and there was a lot of chicken in there. I also got some chicken wings on the side. I didn't know they would be so big, because they gave me the full chicken wing. Like, they don't cut it. They deep fry the whole chicken wing. Those were okay. They weren't the best, but they were okay. And I just got it with the water because I can't really have caffeine. But then this was really good. So for $1.50 extra, you can add in this bubble waffle. It's like a waffle, but it's bubbly. There's nothing inside, but it was actually really good, and it's huge. Like, I know it's hard to tell from the photo, but it was actually, it's like a circle, right? And then it's like maybe this, well, not that big. It's about this big, like that. It's a circle, and it was really good. And apparently you can, like, for like 50 cents more or $1 more, you can like add in stuff inside, like cheesecake or like chocolate. So that value was really good. Anyways, oh yeah, here's another photo of it if you're curious. But I was impressed with this. This was really good. No vegetables, as you can see. I'm not the healthiest guy. Okay, getting back to the game. Let me find my right window. Okay, so my opponent played d4. I played knight f6. He plays bishop f4. We get a London. And it used to be, like, some years back, I did not like playing against the London because I didn't really know what to do. And it was just kind of boring because, well, you know, it's the London. But these days in a tournament, I actually quite like playing against the London when I'm black. Well, obviously when I'm black. But I don't know, because usually you get a pretty like long, deep, even game. And I don't know, I kind of enjoy it. And here I played e6. But then after I played e6, I kind of gave this look. I was kind of like, something felt a little bit weird to me. And then I realized that whoever was playing on the board I was at previously, or it might have been somebody in between rounds, they set the board up incorrectly. Now, ultimately, it's on me to have noticed that before I made my first move, but you expect the board to be set up, right? Yeah, so my king and queen were on the wrong squares. My king was here, my queen was here. So once I realized that, I immediately gestured to my opponent I was like pointing, and then yeah, he chuckled, and then he was very polite about it. He's like, yeah, please, like I remember him doing this motion like yeah, please, like, go ahead and move it, which I mean, obviously I should be allowed to do it, but probably he also felt a bit embarrassed that he didn't notice either, right? So anyways, I swapped those around. That's not the first time that happened to me either, but it's kind of silly that somebody set it up incorrectly. It's probably some kid in the under 1,000 section was playing there. Okay, so game continued, knight f3. And I played b6. So I just want to tell you that, well, should I tell you now? No, I'll tell you later. It'll be more suspenseful. Okay, so knight bd2. It's a London. Like, I'm not going to give a whole lecture about this because you guys all know what the London is. Bishop b7, e3, bishop e7. So the way I play against the London is super boring. I basically bore my opponents to death. It's all like computer built. It's one of the most boring openings I play, but it's very solid. He plays bishop d3, knight h5, bishop g3. I play d6. Again, hopefully I'm not going too quickly for you guys, but this is a London. These are all London-y moves. You can let me know in the comments if you feel I am going too quickly and you would like, every move explained. Excuse me, but I know personally when I watch some videos and they explain every move in great detail, especially like obvious moves, I don't know, it seems a little bit too slow for me. He plays queen e2, which I believe is the main line, but for some reason I actually don't see queen e2 online that often. Although, because I mean, well, c3 is usually played earlier, or c4. And then, yeah, that's probably why I don't see it as often, because usually there's c3 is played and then queen c2 to attack on the king side here. But obviously I've seen queen e2 before, but just not so frequently. I played knight d7, and he plays e4. Now, I was expecting him to kind of play e4 here, but this worried me a little bit when he played it because, again, I faced this online before, but I don't get it frequently enough that I'm super comfortable against it. Like, I don't fully know the plans after e4. I don't really know how to play against e4 that much. So it was a bit of a headache, and there's a lot to consider with such a move. Like, I can't really go on autopilot anymore. So that was a little annoying to me. And I ended up spending 8 minutes, which is possibly too long. But I was thinking between c5 and just checking my notes here and g6. I figured that both were probably fine, and I was right. But yeah, so it might not have been the best use of 8 minutes. But the main thing was if c5, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do about if e5. Because that's kind of complicated, especially when I'm not used to that. Like for me, that's a complicated position. Like, there's a lot to be concerned about there. So I was really hesitant about that. And so I ended up playing g6 because I was just a little bit scared of c5, e5. And my opponent here played c4. Now, c4, Stockfish 15.1, gives us at about -1 for black. And I think it might be because white kind of needs to commit, or at least question what he's going to do with his king. Like, is he going to castle king side or queen side? Is he going to keep it in the center? Maybe he is. But c4 might be, it opens up the position a little bit too much. I know that I haven't castled either, so there is that. But I mean, I can't really lecture on this too much because I don't know all the answers. But it kind of feels like black has just a little bit more ways to decide how to proceed. Like, I'm always ready to take on g3. I might be able to open things up on the c file. Those are kind of the main two things that black has here. But then there's also ideas about doing something on the a1 diagonal. Get my bishop here at some point. So I don't know. It's just not the most optimal move, but it's nothing super terrible about c4. I played c5. So c5, I figured he can close things up if he wants. And I thought I wouldn't really mind that. If I get a draw, I'm happy because, again, this is yet another opponent who is 200 points higher than me. Actually, 300 points. I didn't know it at the time, but over 300 points higher than me. So a draw would be really good for me. And I can't remember if I knew if he was FIDE rated or not at the time. But I knew he was higher rated than me. Okay, so I didn't mind if he closed it up. And he did play d5. And I castled. And he castled queenside. Now, in the London, at least the way I played as black, it's usually a mistake to castle queenside for white. I've never really seen that as a good option for white, at least in terms of the computer's eval. And I think it's because simply white's king is too exposed. Black's king is a lot safer. Yes, there's possible attacks on our king, but white's, especially since he's played c4, but even without c4, white's king is not that safe here because black is ready to just launch a pawn storm, and it's not as easy for white to do that, partly because we have like a bishop. We have more pieces that are just a little bit easier to defend. And also, we have a knight on h5. That's kind of the main thing because white can't easily create a pawn storm, at least not as quickly as black can. Okay, so here I took on g3. Now, the computer said that this was a mistake. Oh, wait. Yeah, it was a mistake. So the eval was actually equal after I took. But I had better than that. It was if I actually take on d5, sorry. If I actually take on d5, and this was a recurring thing in the game, the computer constantly wants me to take on d5. And this would have been minus 1.5. I think part of it is the computer doesn't want the H file to be open, which is, I know that is a thing. But my plan was to remove this bishop. So the reason I took the bishop is because I wanted to play bishop f6 and get some action going on the a1 h8 diagonal, and I can't do that because my pawn on d6 would be undefended. That's why I took his bishop. But yeah, the computer wants me to take on d5 constantly throughout the game, and I forget the exact reasons. I should actually be looking at looked at this in more detail, but I think it just likes to open up the center a little bit, soften up this pawn formation from white, and then maybe bring the bishop to f6, or we get a rook on e8, and then maybe somehow we break open the B and the C files. I think we might even be able to sack a couple pawns just to crack open that and expose white's king. Again, I kind of have to look in that in more detail, but I just remember the computer constantly wanting to trade here. Okay, so this wasn't optimal, but it's still equal after this. He takes, obviously, with the h-pawn. And I went bishop f6. That was my whole plan, so I continued with it. But still, the computer wants to take or trade on d5. Yeah. Okay. And my opponent played knight h2. I like when he played this, I thought this was a little slow. I thought it was a little bit awkward. And the computer agrees with me. Obviously he wants to reroute it to g4, but it just feels a little cumbersome, a little bit too slow. So I might as well tell you now. So up to this point, and pretty much for the rest of the game, my opponent played like it was a bullet game. Okay, I've got my score sheet here. I don't want to show you the result, but it's I don't know why I showed it on camera, but at this point, he hasn't used any time on his clock. Okay, he's got an hour. He's got an hour and 30 minutes left. That's what he started with. He literally has 90 on the clock. And after my next move, I had an hour and 7 minutes, which is perfectly fine. That's like a perfectly good time. But yeah, he played instantly. And okay. So I played a6, which was okay, but the computer still prefers e takes d5, as it always has. And it's partly, I think, because it doesn't want to allow white to take on e6, which I was fine with because I thought this would be quite nice for me. But there were some subtle reasons why the computer didn't like that, which I can't remember now. Yeah, it's still kind of surprising. I think just g6 gets a little bit too weak once you remove the f pawn there. There's some sacks that could happen on it, like even just then white playing d5. There's some issues, I think. Okay, so a6, and he plays f4. The computer still prefers white to take on e6 for white instead. Here I finally take on d5. The computer is happy now. And he took back, he takes d5. Now, apparently knight g4 was stronger. Not a simple move to make, and I can't remember the exact reasons why, but the computer said that was a little bit better for white. Okay, so after c takes d5, I played b5, which the computer slightly preferred bishop g7 for some reason, which I don't quite understand, but I think this was still pretty equal at this point. He plays knight g4, and I played c4. So now things are starting to get a bit of action going on at this point. And just to give you again some context, at this point, my opponent had an hour and 28 minutes. So he only spent 2 minutes off his clock. I was down to an hour and 1 minute. So I'm still doing fine on the clock, but he spent a total of 2 minutes. Okay, so he played bishop c2. And what do you think? What do you guys think here for black? And how long did I think? I don't think I thought that long. Yeah, I only thought for 1 minute on this move. So I played c3. I don't have any notes here so it was probably, I don't think it was the only move. I think there were other moves equally good, but there's nothing wrong with c3. He plays knight f3. I take on b2. And he goes king b1. Okay, move 20. He's still at an hour, 28 minutes. And I have 58 minutes at this point. So my time is still doing great. Like I'm still doing really well with my time management, but he's still playing like near instantly. I played knight b6. Knight b6, I just, there's a lot of threats that we have. So it seems like a very natural square to go to. He plays e5, which was not unexpected, but still annoying. I played bishop g7. He plays knight g5. Here I played h5. And how long did I think on that? 3 minutes only. So around this point, I think I might have started to play a little bit quicker just because my opponent was playing so fast I was not wanting to have the situation where he's got an hour and a half on the clock and I'm down to like 8 minutes, you know? So I wasn't playing like super quick. I was still thinking, but I think I was cutting my thinking time a little bit short than what I would like, just because he was playing so quickly and I didn't want to get too out of sync. So I played h5 here, which looks fine, right? We're attacking the knight. There's no sacks like this to worry about. The knight will have to retreat, and we can kind of continue with our plans. This should hold off white at least for a while. If he tries to break through, we have some defenses and we should be okay. But a little bit better than h5 was, so instead of h5 was knight takes d5, which I did consider, but I was concerned about him sacking the exchange and then following up, I think, oh yeah, with just taking on h7 with the rook or the knight. I'm not sure which is better. And so I was thinking about this, and the computer prefers this line over what I did. But this is hard to go. It's hard to voluntarily go with this, you know. I'm not sure how this would continue. I guess maybe knight goes back. I don't know. This felt a bit, I felt a bit uneasy here. Even this knight check, well, maybe that doesn't work. And it's black's turn here. And I'm not sure if that was best for white either. Maybe he like takes this way. But this felt, I felt nervous about that. White has a lot of pieces. And if the queen gets in, like that looks very scary. And the pawns as well. So I was very nervous about that. But I did definitely consider knight takes d5. But I ended up playing h5. And then we're only on move 23. My opponent just spends 1 minute. So when he played knight g5, he thought for 4 minutes. That's the longest he thought the whole game on this move. And then after h5, he spent 1 minute. And he sacked his rook. He went rook takes h5. Boom. That was a total shock to me. I didn't even remotely consider rook takes h5. Like, it came out of left field. I was like, whoa. And so I think this is the type of move that it's easy to see from the attacker's side. Like, if you're white, from white's point of view, it's easy to see that as a move. But when you're on the defending side, it's much harder to see, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, so I'm just reading my notes. I think part of the issue here is, again, my opponent played so quickly that I thought for 5 minutes on this move. I knew it was a crucial move. Like, I'm not stupid. He just sacked the rook. I know it's a very crucial decision to take or not. And I did spend 5 minutes on it. But when I got to around that point, after I spent 5 minutes, I was down to 42 minutes, which is still ample time. But you have to realize he's been playing so fast the whole game. 42 minutes, if like that could easily, you know, 2 moves from now, I could be down to 32 minutes because he's playing so quick. In 4 moves from now, I could be down to like 20 minutes. You know what I mean? So I had to be really careful about my time. At the same time, though, this is such a critical position. It warrants and justifies deeper thought. So I spent 5 minutes, but I still should have invested more time on such a crucial move. So what I really looked at here was if I take the rook, and I knew that I don't have to take the rook. Like, I don't have to take the rook. I do have threats of my own. But if I do take the rook, what's the most likely follow-up? I was looking at rook h1, and I thought that I could. I thought I could survive there. I thought I could even sack the queen. So, for example, g takes h5, rook h1, queen takes g5, and then if f takes g5, I can take on g4 with my pawn, and then I would have gotten a rook and 2 minors for my queen and a pawn. And once I consolidate my other pieces, I felt that that was quite good for me. It turns out that that's actually winning for white, but for a different reason. It's actually fine for black if we take, and then after rook h1, I think then we take on d5. I think, but I'm not sure. But it wasn't the queen sack. That's actually not the correct way to proceed there. So I took on h5, but you know, my opponent's higher rated and he just sacks the rook. I should have thought longer because I mean, like, yeah. Anyways, as soon as I took it, I saw what I missed, and it was so obvious. What can I say? Yeah, so he plays queen e4. And then I realized, oh God, yeah, I didn't even, yeah. I was not happy with myself because you just feel stupid when you take like a piece and you don't, like, I didn't think about all, you know what I mean? Like, it's a rook. I should have thought longer. My opponent's not just going to give up a rook for nothing. Like, so I should have thought deeper here. The funny thing is queen e4 is not even the best move. I think it's knight f3, if I remember correctly. I think that's even stronger. But queen e4 is still completely winning. It's something like plus 11, if I remember. Or maybe like plus 9, and then the knight f6 was plus 11. And yeah, I wasn't devastated, but I just felt like what a waste. I mean, I did not have, first of all, h5 was technically okay, but it's a lot harder to defend after h5. But then to take the rook when I should have thought longer there because it's a rook. Come on, I spend more time, you know, deciding to take it on. Because if I'm right, I'm just winning, right? So, yeah. Anyways, yeah. Here I thought for quite a while. Well, no, 2 minutes. There's not too much to think about, right? Because if I move the f pawn, he just plays en passant, right? So I played rook e8. He plays queen h7, and king f8 is forced. He plays knight f6, and I think forever here. Partly because I'm still in shock. Yeah, I thought forever. I thought for 11 minutes, which I was looking for something. But I was, as I said, I was still in shock. And then I blundered. I'm just dead no matter what. Every move completely loses, but I make still a silly move. Knight g7, he plays queen g8, and then I resign because I'm dead. He'll just take on f7 next move. So that went downhill so quick. I was like, my position was slightly better for like most of the game. And then h5 is technically okay, but a little dangerous to play. But the real, just a one move blunder when I took the rook and I just didn't look at all the threats that white had. Partly influenced because he played so quickly and I didn't want to get too low in the clock. But that's a mistake. In the future, you know, I had 42 minutes. I can afford to spend more than 5. You know, even if I had gotten down to 20 minutes, if I had spent half my time on this move, 20 minutes is still enough time to try to, you know, play the rest of the game. It won't be pleasant, but it's a lot better than just losing the game right on the spot. So that was my second loss of the tournament. It sucked, but as in terms of losses, I didn't mind it that much. I mean, he is 300 points higher than me. I wasn't super comfortable playing against e4. And yeah, my rating, well, let's not talk about that, but okay, let's just end it there. So after round 4, my score was 1 out of 4. It sounds bad, but I was still actually, I was pretty content still. I mean, 1 out of 4 in the premier section is not bad for me, like, in my opinion. Yeah, okay. Anyways, 2 rounds to go. Stay tuned for those. I will have round 5 up as usual in 2 or 3 days from now. Yes, just stick around for that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.